Our next report is going to be given by Maya Wrigley, and she is substituting for Ari, whose last name I've forgotten, but Maya can tell you. One of our graduate students is overseeing this project, but she has not been able to get away because she has papers due and so on for the end of the semester next week, and she just couldn't take the time to come. So Maya, you're on.
Hi everyone, my name's Maya. Unfortunately, Ari couldn't make it.
Can you speak right into the mics?
Right here? Awesome. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it today, but I'm here.
Slowly and clearly.
Thank you. So this whole project was based off of trying to figure out what high schools around the state are doing to help their students register to vote. And I just wanted to say we really appreciate all the efforts we hear about you guys and your local leagues, you know, making that effort to help high school students register to vote. And as young people, we just really appreciate that validation that, you know, our vote counts, our voices matter. So I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of all people who are getting registered by organizations like y'all. So this research, thank you. This research project was part of a PAVP grant from LWVUS, so thank you LWVUS. The Texas Civil Rights Project projects that under 10% of high schools are in compliance with that, you know, we need to have 2 opportunities every year for our high school seniors to vote. And even when they found this, like less than 10%, they realized that when schools are submitting applications to get those forms from the Secretary of State's office, they're not submitting enough and they're not getting enough forms. So there's really an issue of getting high school students registered to vote. And so Ari sent out 5 emails total about what high schools are doing in terms of asking for forms, what they're doing to get their students their forms. So there were 5 surveys total, and we emailed them to 1,400 high schools. We started out with 1,600, and the way we got from 1,600 to 1,400 was we took out schools that were 9-10 schools, we took out schools that were adult-only schools, and we only looked at schools that had, you know, that 17 to 18-year range and targeted them. So we ended up with a sample size of 1,411. We have 158 responses as of April 20th, which is just a little over 11%. So we've still been working on getting more responses from that survey because 11% isn't too much, but we do have some, which is good. So progress has been being made. And these interns from League of Women Voters of Texas partnered with the Children's Defense Fund, and we've been literally just cold calling people, just asking them to fill out the survey with them, if they knew of anyone who, you know, was in charge of high school voter registration at their school, if we could get connected with a government teacher, a counselor, I mean, anybody. And so we partnered with Children's Defense Fund. We had 158, and we had about 30 more just from cold calling. So it's getting done slowly but surely. And Ari set up a whole training for us. It was really great. We got together with different interns from around the area, and we're still working on it. And I don't have any data on, you know, what high schools have been responding to around the state, but if you have questions about my experience and from me calling the high schools, I'd be happy to answer questions about that. Also, I think this was a really great project, not only to collect data of what high schools were doing around the state, but also to start a conversation with high school administrators about what they could possibly be doing to help their high school students vote. Because when we were asking them those questions of what are y'all doing, are you, conducting assemblies, are y'all handing out the registration forms, are you just leaving them in a corner in the office? They got some ideas from that. They're like, oh, we could be doing more, which was really great. Do y'all have any questions? Yes.
Go to the microphones, please.
So I'm Molly Snow from the Austin area, and I want to know, when you talked to administrations at the different high schools, was there a particular person, like the counselor, or did you get into the assistant principal? Mm-hmm. Who was it that mostly you reached that you got some good answers from?
That's a great question. So first we started off trying to reach the principals of the schools directly, but as we kept making calls, we realized that was really hard because they're so busy. And so then we started asking, we would just call the school and ask, if anyone knew of information, whether the secretary could connect us with the principal, maybe the assistant principal, a government teacher, and that turned out to work better because reaching the principal was so difficult. Sometimes we would just get a voicemail from them and it wouldn't lead anywhere.
Judy Hollinger, Houston area. So is this available on the LWV Texas website, the complete report, or?
Not yet, because the complete report isn't finished yet, but I'm sure it will be once we're done.
Okay, like when, do you think? Because this is going to be, I think this is really the big push we all need to be doing this summer and be ready to get in these high schools in September, because, they have to be registered 30 days before the election. So it's a big priority for me personally, and so what, do you have a date, Elaine, you said?
fine.
No? Okay.
Leslie Barnes, Tarrant County. My question is about the two opportunities that the school makes available to pass out cards. Are they also required to be collecting those if they are not?
So that's a good question. From what Ari told me, I understood is that when they submitted requests from the Secretary of State's office, they would get those forms. And then if they didn't submit the forms back in a certain amount of time, then the schools would be penalized. And so they do have that requirement of getting them and submitting them back. But schools are also not penalized for not submitting or not requesting the forms itself. And so it's a little bit hard, and probably one of the reasons why high schools, around the area don't really get involved with high school voter registration is because if they don't try to do it, there's no way they get penalized. But if they do try to do it, there is a way that they get penalized.
Can I do a little
Yes.
clarification? Yes. So the state law requires that high schools make this opportunity available twice a year. There's a special voter registration form that the principals are supposed to get from the Secretary of State. So when that 10% number came out, that only 10% of schools were complying, what we wanted to do in this study was find out if the high schools are doing something else. And many of them, I think, are doing something else other than calling the Secretary of State and getting these special forms that are only meant for high schools. So we wanted to find out, well, is the League of Women Voters coming in twice a year and doing voter registration in your high school? Or are you doing it another way? So the special form that they get from the Secretary of State, if they ask for it and then don't turn it in, there's a problem. If they don't ask for it, there's no problem in terms of penalties. But so our whole purpose was to find out if they're doing something else.
Is it the principal that gets the penalty or the district?
I think it's the principal, because it's the principal's responsibility. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Edie Jones with Tarrant County, too. My question is, I do not know where the law is, and I need a copy of it because most of the principals play dumb. I don't know what you're talking about. And I want to be able to have a copy of it, and perhaps it's still out there and I just haven't hit the right button. So if it could be...
Grace is coming to tell you.
Okay.
Hi, Edie. If you go to our website.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a section right there. It says for educators. Click on for educators. There is a spot that says high school voter registration, and it has everything that's been compiled by TCRP, Texas Civil Rights Project, about the laws concerning high school voter registration. I can help you too.
Okay, so
It's on our website.
if it's on our website and I print that out, I can go see the handy superintendent or principal and say, hey, guys,
That's right.
because they all play dumb.
And
If it's in the education code, okay.
I will show you two different spots that it's at on the
Okay.
for educators.
But maybe it's just ours who do this. I haven't ever heard of this before.
They-
We need to get out and do
They
it.
get information sent to them by
Thank you.
email also. Sorry.
Hi, Diane Andy, San Antonio. As a former high school administrator, I can tell you that most high school principals receive hundreds of emails a day, and many leave it to their secretaries to cull through them and decide what they have to respond to and what they can put off for a while. The other problem is that even those principals who want to do it are coming up against the state curriculum, for example, for government classes, which does talk about citizenship and the requirements of citizenship, but there's no TEK, that's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that says you must teach them how to register to vote. You must teach them how to be an informed voter. So until the state curriculum requires that, government teachers who have just one semester to cover an incredible number of TEKs don't get to it. It's not required, so they don't get to it. And as was pointed out, there are very few, if any, penalties ever levied against folks for not getting to it. So that's another thing to deal with.
What is your recommendation then? Do you have a recommendation?
I have a recommendation. Right now, the social studies TEKs are undergoing revision to reduce the number of TEKs. One of my fears is that little bit that's in there is going to be taken away in the name of reduction of the TEKs, which is a good thing because there's just too much for teachers to cover within that semester. I mean, you have one fire drill and you've lost a whole, 3 or 4 TEKs that you're supposed to cover. So it's a problem, but it's also, if we think about it, our most sacred civic duty and responsibility, and therefore should be taught and directly taught. So I'm suggesting a change in the TEKs. We need to make it specific.
Hi, Courtney Cross with the Denton League. We've actually been partnering, we partnered with a local organization in Denton to get out the vote. We went into a university and did a few other events, but something else that this organization's working on, and we are bringing their lead person onto our board because she's very active in registering voters, but she also similarly attempted to contact assistant principals, and it is kind of, they're inundated. And so I supported her, we went to the school board meeting, and she just gave public comment about registering high schoolers and provided some materials to the board members, and that's kind of what got the superintendent to follow up, and then went in and registered voters during lunchtime, and then ended up going into a government class. So sometimes it's realizing, kind of like she mentioned, who does and doesn't have time to incorporate it and just the right avenue to go about doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Good job filling in for Ari. And that's an excellent idea of going to the school board meeting and saying, looky here, you guys, there's a law that says you have to do this. All right.